Hi there, welcome to breaking news in the Noah Presgrove case. What I've got to share with you today will shock you, and it's to do with continuing on with the never seen before text conversations with Kaden Pressy and I think a member of the general public back in October of 2023 onwards. We're continuing on with that, and what Kaden Pressy had said back then was highlighting that his mom, Alicia Lee, in other words, being a liar. In his words, twisting what Kaden has said, in which Alicia has told other members of the general public a certain side of a story which wasn't true, and Kaden Pressy has called her out. And we're going to get more into that later today, so be sure to stick around. On top, in between, we're looking at other points which Kaden was talking about in terms of the party, and a discussion about photos or leaked images of Noah Presgrove's dead body on the highway. What is that all about? When did that come about? And who else has witnessed it? A lot is going on. It's heating up. Take in mind, retrospective, this is what's happened in the past and what's been talked about in the early days in 2023 of October, kind of like a month or so onwards, post-death of Noah Presgrove. You'd think memory recollections and what was known at the time, closer to the truth, maybe more accurate. And yet it was never shown or shared public until more so in recent time. Take in mind, I've had to stop in between because we had the breaking news of the wrongful death lawsuit on top of the map analysis and all of that breaking news and important material. If you have missed out on any videos in recent time and even in the past, don't worry. You can find the entire collection of videos, the Noah Presgrove playlist created and uploaded by me. That is available top right corner where the eye symbol is up there. Be sure to check it out when you've got time and after watching this video. But today we're continuing on with very important conversations with Kaden Pressy. Just as a disclaimer, out of respect for people's privacy and meeting certain conditions along the way, I can't show you the screenshots at this moment in time, but I have seen them with my own eyes, and I've basically written down what was said from those conversations, at least the key points that stand and pop out to me. So it's okay if you don't agree with it or believe in it, but just know that what I'm telling you is what Kaden Pressy has or had said back then, amongst some of the response lines by another member of the general public that was having a convo with Kaden. I have done a series like this previous when we focused in on Travis Monson, Colton Newton, and Kaden Pressy, giving context behind when they arrived, when they left, and how they were told to leave by Jack Newton, which I believe was Saturday night, evening time when they returned back, but they didn't return Sunday. They weren't welcome. Neither Monday. So what Kaden Pressy had said at some point in the police interview of June 2024 is vastly different to how Kaden Pressy worded it back in 2023. So take that in consideration, that it's like a battle in your own head, not ours, but Kaden's, whether he knows it or not. That what Kaden says in 2023 can vastly differ to 2024 of what he said. And I know people will say, but look at the current news, the wrongful death lawsuit, the people involved and caught up. Is Kaden on that list? No. So why are we looking at it? Because we need to finish what was started. And that's exactly what I do. And I wanted to continue this on, but I just didn't have the time because of other stuff and the breaking news. And I want to continue on right here. And it's the perfect time because it's very important. Some key points mentioned on top of the other shocking claims, right? So you'll get a better insight in terms of Kaden Pressy's outlook of the party and Kaden's outlook of his own mom. And I'll tell you something else as a heads up. When we do the next video, when there's time, as a summary, it's going to get even more shocking to some extent. You thought Justin Roy's daughter speaking out and apologising for the father's behaviour, Justin, Well, you see to a very small extent some of that as well elsewhere. So just be on the lookout. What I do want to say is welcome to anyone that's watching this live premiere. Share your reactions in the chat, the live one located on the right. And at any point, and for those watching on catch up, leave your additional thoughts, your comments, questions, answers, discussions, whatever it is, whatever's in your mind, leave a comment down below under the video. It will help with spreading awareness. It will help with YouTube pushing the video out there so more people can see it. Because I do feel that this video in particular is highly important and needs the awareness based on what Kaden has said previous. We can always do a summary video in the future with screenshots if needed and when allowed, but at the moment we just work with what we've got. If you want to support my channel, there is a PayPal link available in the comment section where the pinned message is. In terms of how we do the format today, you're going to see me, you're going to hear me. I've got the notes in front of me, bullet pointed. Read them out, elaborate if necessary, analyze and give my live reactions in the moment, okay? And then we see where it goes from there. I know the video that was done last night was late because running late in general, but big shout out to the people that were able to make it to the live premiere quickly and on the spot. That is appreciated. I think there was maybe like 30 to 41 people or so, which is really positive to see. Tonight, it should be normal time as usual. I know the odd person, who were they called, Anna or Annie, saying, why or how is this video important? Well, just as a summary from last night, the great importance of last night's video is making use of party footage, then comparing and contrasting from other footage of a party, whether it's the same one or not, but it is from the same house, but a different location in the house, a different camera angle, diagonal to where Kaden Pressy was from point of view to point of view, and to highlight based on what Kaden can see and can't see, and the time of when he claimed to go to sleep, and then the other time of when he claimed to go to sleep 20 minutes later, is figuring out within that time frame window and what was visibly available to see for Kaden's peripheral vision and wherever he moved about, and if he did, what did Kaden actually see compared to what he may have seen, but it's more in here, as in not openly talking about it or forgotten. What did he see compared to what did he hear? Because Kaden, like with the situation of Noah wanting a ride home, Kaden in the early days worded it with confidence that he saw Noah reaching out to multiple people. Then in a live chat on my channel, Kaden said, well, I didn't actually see it. These weren't used, but these were. Limited senses. You want all senses to be activated and used in the moment, from what you can remember in hearing, from what you can remember in seeing, and even your nose in smelling, right? And so on. It makes the memory a lot stronger, a lot more accurate, and more memorable if there's many different sensories being used and activated, but it seemed to collapse from there. So very important video last night from different camera angles, considering that the party footage is limited in general from room to room. Do we have any party footage of a different room? Do we have any party footage of around the back, the pasture? Don't think so. And other stuff is private and not been publicised or shown, shared to me. But hopefully, if there is a time, it can be at least shared with me, because it will be in safe hands, it will be absolutely under control, and the delivery and execution will too. So if you do want to reach out for the right reasons, feel free to do so on my channel. The social media links are available. With that being said, let's get into today's video. It still ties on with Kaden Pressy, so we've got a good theme going. This is along the lines of October 19th, 2023 onwards, very early on, not long from Noah Presgrove's death. So let's see what Kaden had to say at the time. It is following on from the last video that I did, and the last thing that was mentioned was a person in that convo talking to Kaden saying, was Caleb Newton, Jack Newton's father, at the party, yes or no? And Kaden said with 100% confidence, Caleb Newton, Jack's father, was not at the party. Despite all the claims online by the same yes men, yes women that would look up to Kaden, those people and others as well, outsiders, have been saying and suggesting Caleb was at the party, he was present, he was engaging in certain acts, and may have tied in line with Noah's death or outcome, as people suggested and other people boldly stated. But if these yes men, yes women specifically are saying that, as for the percentage, unknown, but I have seen those type of people refer to Caleb at the party. If they're yes men, yes women to Kaden, then why have they not gone along with what Kaden says? The counterpoint would be because this type of stuff has not been mentioned before publicly until recent time of when I've done my videos, and that's why it's important to spread the awareness so those that support or defend Kaden Pressy, when they do act in a hypocritical way and drift aside, still claiming to support Kaden and look up to him, but then they go off rogue with alternative ideas just to reel you back in and say, well, you might be thinking this or that, going against what Kaden says, but this is what Kaden was actually saying, so do you go along with it now? Do you agree with it? Kaden Pressy speaks. Do you nod your head, yes or no, when you have done all the other times previously? And when I say you or this or they, am I directly talking to you at the camera right now? Well, only if you feel that you relate to it, because it'll be such a situation like many other times where I'm talking in general, but if you feel it's aimed or directed at you, maybe you have a level of self-doubt within your subconscious, unconscious mind, which has opened up, which is unknown to me. But if you want to open up yourself and feel free to give context as to why you feel responsible, you can do so down below in the comment section. But beside that, in general, when speaking, reel it back in. This is what Kaden said in the early days. Do you believe in it, yes or no? The dark side, of course, has said Caleb was not at the party. Why would he be? Some of the light side have said he was, but some of the light side support Kaden. So based off what Kaden had said in a private conversation, saying 100% that Caleb Newton was not at the party, was never there. Do those type of supporters go along with that now and change their entire mindset? It'll be very interesting to see. So based off that last conversation with Kaden and the individual, as part of the ongoing thread in the messenger, it was mentioned by a person, the same person having a convo with Kaden, said someone sent him pictures of him at the scene. What does that exactly mean? And who are they talking about? Could well be Caleb Newton, based off the earlier conversation of was he at the party, was he here, was he there? Kaden says nope, not at all, and then the other person says, well, someone, whoever that is, sent Caleb photos of Caleb himself at the scene, supposedly. Doing what and why? Is it interpreted as at the scene? Well, scene or party could have been in both, depending how it's been interpreted here. But you could understand Caleb being at the scene based on the appropriate time given 6:05 onwards, when Jack made the call to his father and the father came on down eventually and did arrive at the scene. So that makes sense, but who would be taking photos of Caleb at the scene to then send them on, the same person, to Caleb later? And why would they be sending photos onto that person later to say, yeah, you know when you said you weren't there, well look, here's the photos of that you were, so why are you lying? It just seems a bit weird. It's almost like a reminder to say, hey, you were there, I've got photos of it. Why would you be sending it directly to that person? Is it because they've publicly claimed that they were never there? Is that the reasoning behind it? Maybe. But yeah, besides that individual bringing it up about sending pictures to him, I guess, of Caleb present in the area, and Kaden Pressy's response was, the only people I know that were present and saw Noah Presgrove, as in the body on the highway, was me, Kaden, Jack Newton, Isaac Rojas, Brylan Sweat, and Mikey Lair. How true is that? Well, it could all be true, but the timing of it does differ, as we know, from Kaden's timeline to other people's. And Kaden's timeline has fallen through since with all the discrepancies. And on top, with the wrongful death lawsuit, it's neglected, not even acknowledged Kaden Pressy's timeline. And I know some people like to say, well, it's because it's not been truly verified yet. It's not been truly confirmed yet. So when will it be then? Because what about the whole phone data when it came to Alicia claiming that police took Kaden's phone, did the data analysis, verified it, and 515 is correct. And then Kaden Pressy, months later, in his own words, publicly stating police never took his phone, it's never been analysed. So the mom says it has been analysed, taken by police. Kaden says never happened. What is going on there? If people are innocent, partygoers or not, should be pretty simple and clear. It's not. Major problem. That's why it needs to be highlighted. So based on that train of thought, the inconsistencies, what other inconsistencies are there? So when referring back to present at the scene, seeing Noah's body, did Jack Newton see Noah? Well, yeah. Did Kaden? Well, it seems to be the case, yeah. Did Brylan and Isaac? I guess so. But did Mikey? Well, based on Kaden's timeline, not at all. Because at 5:15 to 5:30, at the time of 5:15 when the news comes out, as Kaden claims, Jack bursting through the door. 5 minutes later, Kaden leaving to go to the highway with supposedly Mikey, Brylan and Isaac. Getting to the highway. Then at 5:30 or round about then, being told to leave, to go back to where they were. Well, just a few minutes before being told to leave at the highway, where Mikey Lair was next to Kaden Pressy, there's a conflicting piece of hard evidence which states with a Snapchat post timestamped at 5:27 a.m, a time of when Mikey should be at the highway, but was actually in the party house in, I believe, Logan Jernigan's bed, awake, happy, smiling, as if they hadn't heard of the news at that point. Not before, not in the moment, but likely later on, as you would expect with all the other timelines tying around 6 in the morning onwards. It's a problem, isn't it? We've not seen any counterpoints, we've not seen any counter hard evidence. It's just sat how it has. Other true crime creators, to a small degree, been a couple of people just recently that have done one-off videos, been a bit wonky in terms of detail, so I've added the corrections in, under control. TikTok may do bits as well. I am trying to do TikTok videos when I can, based on the length of the video, because it has to be under 1 hour long or so. I can imagine this video being probably over that mark, so unfortunately I won't be able to upload it or summarize it either because it's too much going on. But there's actually a bit of awareness going on TikTok by me. I am single-handedly covering, to a small extent, because I can't upload every video onto TikTok. It's getting like 900, 800 views, a little bit more than maybe what's seen on here on YouTube. So different audience, different platform, same awareness, similar consistency, that's all good. But whilst there are other creators here and there that may cover the case, what they do neglect is the new material and evidence which has come about with time. You'll see that with most cases out there, because I stick around covering a case and other people don't. When other people do come in to do the coverage, they'll say the same old regurgitated, boring, politically correct, original story and claims, neglecting all the evidence collected along the way. But the reason why people won't add in the extra research is because they don't have it themselves. They don't have the access. But to some extent, I do at times. It's just that other people don't bother doing the research or looking for my channel. But it's also probably because YouTube doesn't push my videos out there enough when it should be done. So then more people can see it, then other creators can acknowledge it, whilst giving credit, of course, so then it can spread even more awareness. But none of that happens because it's always dysfunctional, isn't it? Regardless of the case. But anyway, let's just continue on. So this mentioned by Kaden of Jack, Isaac, Brylan, Mikey, and himself, Kaden, were the ones that saw Noah Presgrove on the highway, as in no one else really did. I guess in terms of named individuals which Kaden is familiar with, as for party goers, okay. But in terms of Caleb, well, Caleb was there from all the stories of what we've heard, but at a later point in time when arriving because of Jack making a call to his father. But it will add on very shortly because of what Kaden said in response. We'll get to that. But on top of those partygoers' names listed seeing Noah Presgrove's body, Kaden Pressy said, I'm sure none of them had their phones out, but Jack Newton may have. What's this all about? Well, I think this ties on because it is referred to later in the notes, but just based on the context of the convo, this is along the lines possibly, could be interpreted as in of who took the photos of Noah Presgrove's dead body and who leaked them online. What's going on there? But Kaden said, I am sure none of the guys like Isaac, Brylan, Mikey himself did not have their mobile phones out. Having your phones out means that you're already in possession of your phone wherever you are, on scene, on site. Pulling it out in your hand to make a call, to take a photo, to look at messages, whatever it may be, to make a call to a loved one, emergency services. That means having your phone out. For Kaden to say, I'm sure none of them had their phones out means, okay, they weren't using their mobile phones at the time at the scene. But it doesn't clearly say whether these said individuals had their phones with them, on them, at the highway. Did they leave their phones behind at the house? Did they take their phones with them to the scene, but they kept them in their pocket? Unknown of. So just take that into mind, because when people like to say about the geofence or the geonet, the phone pings, you know, we need to look at these people's phone pings to see when they were on scene, at what time, and is it even true that they were there on scene, or are they lying? Well, besides the whole poking at Jack Newton, the poking at Carter Combs, as people have done over and over again, well, let's not forget Isaac Rojas, Brylan Sweat, and most importantly, Mikey Lair, because Mikey Lair would be the most important one to look at as long as he had his phone with him and it was turned on. Okay, maybe he didn't use it, he didn't have it pulled out, as Kaden says, based on what he thinks, what he's sure about, but not with absolute confidence. But if Mikey had his phone on him and he was at the highway and it was turned on and you could somehow track it, as in phone ping movement, where one was at a certain time, it could either reinforce or debunk most of what Kaden Pressy says based on his 5:15 timeline. It can further complement and help back up the already existing Snapchat post of Logan, Mikey, and Jasmine in the bed at the party house at 5:27 in the morning, at the time of when Kaden's claiming Mikey was with him at the highway. Can't be in two places at once. So if these partygoers had their phones with them and they were turned on and it was using location service, tracking services, any apps, weather app in the background, well then you could possibly look for the phone pings, the spots and the times, and it would either back up or go against Kaden Pressy. Make or break. Has it happened yet? Who knows? But for Kaden to end his sentence with, but Jack Newton may have had his phone out, what does that mean to say? As in what? Jack Newton had his phone out and may have taken some sneaky photos of Noah's body? Is that how it's been interpreted? Or is Kaden Pressy subconsciously slipping a tongue in a way, agreeing with Jack Newton's timeline? How? Well, Jack Newton used his phone at the highway to make a call to his father, having the phone out to dial, call, and answer, etc. But that was at 6:05 in the morning. Kaden's timeline is a 5:15 onwards. So if Kaden, in a way, acknowledges that Jack may have had his phone out and was using it, and Jack was, but at a later time, is Kaden Pressy agreeing with Jack's timeline of 6 in the morning onwards? It makes you think, doesn't it? Very interesting. Because all these named individuals could have been all there at the same time, but at a specific time and later. So you let me know your thoughts down below as to what you think. Is there any other possibilities that if Jack had his phone out, what was he using it for? Do you have any suspicions around that? Let me know in the comment section below. Now, the other thing that was mentioned and added in, and tying on with photos and media, Kaden Pressy said if the photo was at night time, it must have been Jack Newton. The photo taken at night time. The photo of what? This is where it ties into the theme, supposedly, of what's being talked about later, as in Noah Presgrove's body. Someone at the highway taking a photo of Noah's dead body and then either sharing or directly posting it online, and people saw it. I've never seen it. I've never really heard it mentioned before. So what the hell's going on there? You let me know if you've witnessed it yourself. And based on that photo being taken, I think Kaden Pressy reels it back in with his original 5:15 claim, I'm guessing. But then again, 5:15 is morning time, maybe early hours, but it's morning, not night time. So for Kaden to say if the photo of Noah Presgrove's body was taken at night time, which would have to mean Sunday night, because it was Monday morning when the death happened. Doesn't make sense, does it? The only other way of interpreting it would be night time for them is early hours of Monday morning, because they still relate to Sunday night as to the same as Monday morning as Sunday night, because they hadn't gone to sleep until around early hours of Monday, which they still refer to as Sunday. Maybe. If we're talking about Monday, interpreting it as night, even though it's morning, but it's dark, and to them it's considered night time, then Kaden's referring to his 5:15 timeline of, well, at 5:15 onwards, it was dark, it was night, even though it wasn't night time, but dark. If the photo was taken at around 5:15 or a bit before, which I'm guessing is what Kaden's meaning, it must have been Jack Newton. Why must it be Jack Newton of all people if the conditions are that if the photo's taken at night time, it has to be Jack? Because of the whole 5:15 timeline, that because it was Jack, the first one to be at the highway in regard to a party goer first on scene to see it, then to report it to the people back at the house. So it's around that time. And even the photo doesn't have a timestamp. If it appears dark, well, then it links to what Kaden claims, as in at that time of 5:15, it was dark. And at that time, it was Jack Newton first on site to see it as a party goer to then tell us the news. So it must all link together to my timeline, and it must all link together to Jack Newton being responsible then for the photo. It's quite a mouthful, isn't it? Now, if it wasn't, I mean, the way Kaden's referring to as if the photo was nighttime, so Kaden hasn't seen the photo himself. Who has? Has Michael Facecaz? Anyone else in the background? And I believe, based on what's been mentioned here, we're not talking about the video clip which Kaden claims and Michael Facecaz has claimed of tampering with the body, pulling the shorts off, removing them. This is a photo. But if it's a photo, has this got anything to do possibly with Kathy Bingham, that live photo, which may or may not show Noah's body, but that's all? And Kaden, as of October 19th, 2023, wasn't aware of it at the time. But then as time passed on, when in contact with Kathy Bingham, Kathy showed that photo to Kaden, which Kaden was unsure of at this time of conversation with a stranger. I don't know. I'm not too sure. I'm trying to pin it together to possibly understand, but I do want to know your thoughts in the chat, because I think this is very important about a supposed photo existing from the highway of Noah's body, and Kaden saying, well, depending on the timing of when it was taken, it's probably Jack Newton responsible. Why would Jack Newton take a photo of Noah's dead body? Why would anyone? And what was done with it? What was the whole purpose and aim about it? To document as a form of evidence? Yeah, there's been talks in the community that claims of a volunteer firefighter, a worker, someone who was present on scene later took a sneaky photo and then may have leaked it or shared it about, which was very inappropriate and unprofessional. Now, you've got to take in mind, just in general, there's been times in the UK when there may have been a murder, a victim, a female who's been assaulted, died, killed, injured, whatever, and then some police people on the side, dodgy policemen, have taken some inappropriate photos for their own pleasure, enjoyment, and then shared it about with others after. In the background, unprofessional. So even the higher-ups and the authorities, you can't always be, I guess, certain of. You've got to be cautious. So take that into consideration. And if there's any updates about that, even though it's been mentioned so far back then, if there are any updates or it can be tied on with what we've learned since then, a separate video can be done. And if you have any additional context behind it, leave a comment below or reach out to me. Now, beside the whole photo talk, some other points mentioned, Kaden Pressy said that the Millans, as in Renee Millan, the mother to Jasmine and Stephanie Millan. So it was Renee, husband, Stephanie Millan, and boyfriend returning back. Stephanie and boyfriend returning back to the party house. Renee and husband arriving for the very first time, just for context there. And Kaden said that the Millans didn't get there, I guess, at the party house until sunrise was almost over. I tried typing that in as in, when does sunrise end or so? And it said about 6:23. Maybe it differs with time, but around 6:23. Kaden Pressy had said in the Partners in True Crime interview, the one he did, part 1, that it was 6:30 in the morning when the Millans arrived at the party house. And in this same Facebook convo, Kaden closely refers to 6:30 as an estimate. So consistent there with what he said. Okay. But Renee Millan had said in a public Facebook statement in the past to counter Kaden by saying it wasn't 6:30, it was around 7 or just a bit before 7 in the morning. And that's significant because Kaden says at 7 is when Renee was already there, but told Kaden and the guys to leave the house because police were on the way. So there's a bit of a crossover and overlap with times, isn't there? Renee did say that she would find her phone data, her records, to back it up with hard evidence. She never did. Why is that? Why? It could have helped. Could have gone a long way. Could it still be done now? I don't know. If you have any answers or updates to that, feel free to do so. But this is in regard to the party house. And on top of that, Kaden Pressy said that he's never seen Caleb there once, not even when leaving. Now, okay, that part is still to do with the highway from the looks of it, because granted, whilst I said there was a bit of an overlap with the house and the scene at the highway, yeah, the Millans arriving at the highway, Kaden claimed were there for 30 minutes. So that could be interpreted as they arrived at 6 in the morning, 30 minutes present, standing about. And then or just a bit before that, then going to the house at 6:30 is the time Kaden gives, as in arriving at the house, and it was until sunrise when they arrived was almost over. Now for Renee to say, well, we got to the house at around 7 or so, I guess a little bit before that, at the highway, and I believe Renee said we were only there for maybe 5 minutes or so, not that long, and they didn't get too close either because they didn't want to get in the way, too upsetting. My question is, at the time of when Renee was there, I guess before 7 in the morning or so, at the highway, it wasn't closed off by ODOT. They closed it off, the highway section, at around, 7:30, 7:40 in the morning, meaning Renee would have been able to just pass on through and get to the house direct, not having to take the back roads, as Kaden supposedly did. So that would have saved a bit of time. Take that into consideration. But Kaden's follow-up response to the person in the convo by saying, I have never seen Caleb there once, not even when leaving. And I mean, that's more so to do with the highway. You know, when I was at the highway, I didn't see Caleb present, even though you, as in the person he's having a convo with, claimed that there was a picture of him, Caleb, at the scene. And Kaden's like, well, I didn't see Caleb there at any point. And even when I was told to leave at 5:30, still did not see him. Well, if Kaden's timeline's wrong, and Kaden was actually there at the highway 6 in the morning onwards, for that time of when Kaden arrived at that highway 6 in the morning onwards and then later told to leave, did that cross in with when Caleb arrived, or did Caleb arrive later because of the drive down, the distance to cover to get there? If so, you could understand why Kaden is saying he didn't see Caleb, because they were there at different times, coming and going. Now, adding back onto the reference of the Millans, more so at the house itself, Kaden did say that they told me I should leave before the cops arrive. As in Renee, the mother, telling Kaden, you need to leave the house. And Kaden leaving with Brylan, Mikey, Isaac, etc. And that was the Millans. Kaden referenced it as the Millans collectively told him to leave, but Kaden also said it was just the mother. So was it all of them? Was it just one? Now, Renee had said in her own statement online on Facebook that never said that never happened, never told or encouraged Kaden to leave or to run away. So who's telling the truth there? One person says one thing, another person says the other. Discrepancies. Not good, is it? It's not ideal. Now, if Kaden Pressy did stay at the house, and so did the other guys, would Kaden Pressy have been treated any differently by police, supposedly, down the line? As it's been worded, Kaden had to scratch and claw his way to getting answers, to getting calls, to being in contact with the right people, to getting interviews done and trying to clear his name, and even trying to forcibly hand his phone in to help and assist. It took a great level of effort, and he had to do most of the work like a catalyst. If Kaden Pressy remained at the party house when the cops showed up, whether Renee told him to leave or not, if Kaden remained on site at the house, did an interview, formal info inquiry, talked it through, would it have been any differently? And would Kaden have been welcome to the gathering days or a week later by, was it the Newtons at a different household or something, all getting together, talking it through with or without police? Would Kaden have been invited to that if he had stayed at the party house on the day of Noah's death? Would it have been any different for Kaden? I don't know if I'll do that as a poll in the chat or a poll on my community tab, but I'll try and add it in if I remember. The next point mentioned was who called the Millans, what the person on the other end of the convo, unnamed individual, had asked Kaden. Kaden said probably Jasmine Millan. And that's consistent with what Renee has said. Renee had said that my daughter Jasmine contacted me about the news, but it was between, was it 5:45 to 6 in the morning, I believe, around that time. which is interesting. And like people have said, well, based on that approach and the news, it seems as if it supports Jack's timeline more than Kaden's. We have done a whole video about that previous. We need to follow it up. We can. Kaden Pressy also said that I just hope that my friends aren't involved. I just don't understand why they aren't being cooperative. The other person on the end of the convo said, well, I think they are being cooperative, but they're just not telling the absolute truth. They might be holding some stuff back. Now, does Kaden have any evidence or anything to back it up with, as in to show why others, his friends, aren't cooperating? It's been mentioned online and maybe in articles as well that the girls specifically fully cooperated with police and it was all good, the communication there. But like how Kaden words it, they weren't cooperating. How? Why? Is it just because, based on Kaden's mentality, is what Kaden says, if anybody goes against it, well then they're not being cooperative and they're not being honest? Is Kaden in a position to have that mindset when he himself has accidentally, mistakenly got mixed up, muddled with certain times and features and details? It's understandable, it can happen, but you know, to start placing yourself on the mountaintop, the pinnacle, and then calling out other people for not cooperating just because the story is different to yours, even though maybe it's the majority against one. And when one has made mistakes themselves, are they in a position to judge or make statements of others not cooperating? Others being dysfunctional? You got to rethink that just for the balance aspect. Does anyone know or have examples of partygoers being uncooperative? If you do have any examples, leave it below. You could say that partygoers have been somewhat uncooperative and not really talking when it comes public, interviews, Facebook, or continued on. It's never happened with some, and for others like Jack, it's stopped. And maybe more so because they want to protect themselves, they want to lay low so things don't get too messy or hairy. I get that, but still, it's just to make as an observation. Now, some other points to mention, and this is where I refer back to the issue with Noah Presgrove's body. Noah's dead body photo or photos taken of and then shown about somewhere. This is where some of the shocking news comes about, including when Kaden privately, in a joking way, calls out his mom as well. So if you've made it this far, I appreciate it. And for anyone joining late, make sure to listen in. So the person on the end of the convo with Kaden said, I just can't believe those pictures are out there. Noah Presgrove's body. Kaden responds, I don't know who would spread pictures of a dead person. That pretty much confirms it's Noah Presgrove's body, because there was only one dead person there at the time. And to say, for the other person to say, I can't believe those pictures are out there of Noah's body. Pictures as in multiple, and out there as in online or spread about in public. Who would do that and why? And those that took the photos, or the person to take the photos, were they the same to distribute it somewhere as well? Or did they pass it on to someone and then someone else decided to leak it? What's this all about? Why would anyone do it? As a joke, as a prank, as a means of protecting themselves, as a taunt, as some kind of like killer card memory to say this is what the body looks like, this is what I've done, to remind themselves? Is there any normal explanation? Maybe not. Why would anyone do that? If it was like a stranger with a bit of an obsession with death and gore and they got turned on by it, a little bit twisted as well, maybe you could put some kind of argument across. But if these are party goers, If these are Noah Presgrove's friends, close friends, would any of them, especially when traumatized and upset in the moment, would any of them actually take a photo of Noah's body? And why are we directing it to the possibilities of it being one of Noah's friends or a party goer? It could be a trucker. It could be another witness. It could be some stranger that passed on by. It could be a member of the volunteer firefighter department. It could be a police person. It could be anyone. Well, we're just linking it back to what was said earlier, as in, if a photo was taken at night time, as Kaden was suggesting, then it must be Jack Newton. What, tying in as in Jack Newton taking the photo of Noah's body? You see where it's going now? Sounds rather shocking. Why would Jack Newton, supposedly, take photos of Noah Presgrove's dead body? What do you gain from that? Your best friend's dead. You're sad, upset. Are you honestly going to think, right, I'm going to pull my phone out now, I'm going to take a photo? Seems hard to believe. If someone's got a disconnect or no connection, no emotional connection, no knowledge or feeling towards the person, as in if it was a stranger, a member of the general public, a non-party goer, an older individual, maybe they could have done that. Still suspicious, still weird and odd. Would it have been a member of authorities? Would it have been a volunteer firefighter? We've heard those mentions already online about a possible worker or volunteer firefighter taking a sneaky photo of Noah's body, whether it be the claim of the tampering with the evidence part of shorts being removed, or if it's just a photo itself and then it being distributed about. May or may not link onto what's mentioned here in this conversation. But to say, I don't know who would spread pictures of a dead person, as in Kaden Pressy. This is all very important because Kaden Pressy has never mentioned any of this or his opinion of it in any of the public interviews. So it's like this type of stuff that happened and what was known of in 2023 hasn't been brought up the same since, especially by those same said individuals. Is it because it just can't be talked about public? How come Kaden Pressy or the police never mentioned it in the police interview of June 2024? Besides the mention of a video of shorts being removed, tampering with the body and evidence, as Kaden said, was shown by Kathy Bingham that had the material of it, and Kaden said, well, Kathy said it came from a trucker, a driver on site that was secretly recording it. Well, that is a video. So this photo or pictures, are they more so screenshots from a video, which links back to a trucker, a driver on site, member of the general public, no connection to Noah or emotional connection, and then somehow it fell in the hands of Kathy Bingham, even though Kathy Bingham has said ever since she never had video of that. She only had a live photo and it wasn't to do with tampering with the body, even though Alicia, or more so Kaden, has made a reference to Kathy Bingham having that material. What an absolute mess. So it's not been mentioned before to my knowledge this, or at least when I've been around with what I've seen and what I've not. Never seen Kaden Pressy acknowledge it or give his opinions and thoughts about it. Only in this private conversation, how he just can't comprehend how anyone would take photos, especially more than one. What type of photos were they? What angles were they of? What did they really show? What was the lighting as well? What was the time? You know, were these photos taken before or after Kaden Pressy claimed to be at the scene of the highway? Well, Kaden didn't know at the time because he's never seen these photos before. He's just been told that they exist or existed. From then, 2023, October 19th to present day now, has Kaden Pressy seen those photos or not? Not been acknowledged by Kaden. And if there is any references that have been brought up since, they've not linked in terms of the same style or wording to what we've just read out then. So, beside Kaden, this other individual that's talking to Kaden saying, I can't believe that there are pictures out there of Noah's body. How did they hear about it then? Have they seen them themselves? Who saw them? Who saw the photos of Noah's dead body? Where did they come from? Where were they posted? What time? What date? What year? If anyone's a witness to it, leave your thoughts below or reach out to me, because it's just very weird. If it's an accidental death, if it's not murder and there's no foul play, then the instance of taking photos of a dead body adds a layer of darkness on top of an unfortunate outcome. And those that take photos, are they responsible for Noah's death, or are they just vultures getting an opportunity to get a kick out of it? What's really going on there? So beside that, we then transition on to other stuff now. And this is where it heats up again with other important topics. How I'm reading it out is in the order of how the conversations went on Facebook Messenger, so just so you know. That in regard to when Georgia had left the party, Kaden Pressy said that I fell asleep, then woke back up, remembering I was supposed to watch over her, and found out that Georgia had already left. So I went back to sleep. What time? Not given. Kaden had said in the Partners in True Crime interview, he went to sleep at 2 in the morning for the first time. For the first time going to sleep at 2 in the morning. Then at 2:42, woken up by Alicia calling about having Georgia and on the way back home. That seems consistent because Alicia's call log does state she made a call to Kaden at 2:42. So likely the contents of that call was true to what's already been said. Then Kaden went back to sleep at 3 in the morning. Police interview, Kaden said, well, 3 in the morning is when the call was made by Alicia. That's incorrect, because the call log says 2:42. Simple as. So the only one that's in question, time-wise, is when Kaden went back to sleep. Either 3 in the morning, from what he says in Partners in True Crime interview, or 3:20, with what was said in the police interview. Who knows which one's which one's true, which one's false. But for Kaden to say that I fell asleep at what time and then woke back up remembering at what time, realised Georgia, his cousin, already left, taken home or in the process. At what time? And then going back to sleep. What time? This is very weird. Because the only time we know of, which Kaden Pressy has publicly made clear, he went to sleep for the first time at 2 in the morning. Well, at 2 in the morning, Breely, Georgia, had already left, from what Breely's sister stated online. Breely's 2 sisters, older sisters, showed up to give him a ride home. The reason why 2 sisters showed up, because I think one was contacted, then another one was contacted, and then they both showed up at the same time. But it enabled one of Breely's sisters to drive Breely and Georgia back home because they were too drunk to drive themselves. Breely specifically, because Breely was the one to take Georgia down to the party in the first place. And because Breely wasn't able to drive back home, had to rely on her older sister or sisters. So there's that. Breely's other sister, well, just make it very clear. 2 of Breely's sisters showed up, one in their own car, which they used to transport Georgia and Breely back home. And then the other sister drove Breely's car back home, right? But it's not as simple as that with what we've heard in between. We'll get to that a bit later. But more importantly, if Kaden Pressy is saying, I fell asleep, interpreted at a time of when Georgia may have still been at the party, and then whatever time it was when Kaden woke back up, would that be 2:42? Without much context, Kaden says, I woke back up remembering I was supposed to watch over her. but then I found out she was already gone. How did Kaden find out? Because he was told by Alicia. Probably. But you see how there's lacking context, no timestamp given that early on, when there's a clearer, fresher memory. I'm interpreting this, I'm trying to piece it all together. There's only two or three ways Kaden would find out that Georgia and Breely had already left. In that Kaden wakes up remembering, I'm supposed to be watching over her. Why though? Well, just for context there, Sunday night 10:30 when Breely, Georgia arrived, unknown to Kaden, Kaden then had to be the guardian and watch over Georgia because of being underage and a younger age than Kaden. And Kaden said he didn't trust the guys at the party, didn't want the guys to mess with his cousin. Fair enough. So from 10:30 onwards, Kaden watching over her, but at 12:48 in the morning on Monday, Kaden took the photo of Georgia outside throwing up, or post-effect of throwing up because of drinking too much, shared it with Alicia, and Alicia was like, oh goodness, don't let anyone else take photos of her and watch over her. If she needs to go to the toilet to pee, you follow her to the door. So make sure you keep her in your sight at all times. And the only reason why Alicia changed her tune and attitude there is because Georgia was then in a vulnerable spot, and because of drinking, not a good place. So Alicia was a little bit concerned, and whilst earlier trusted Kaden to look over Georgia because Georgia ended up drunk and sick, and Kaden reported that to Alicia, and Alicia was like, right, you got to step things up now. You got to make sure you look out for her at all times. But obviously, Kaden didn't, because Kaden was either in a different room or was asleep, resting, doing other stuff. And Alicia, an hour or so afterwards, picked up on that, and in between or around the time an hour later made a call or sent a few texts saying, are you there, Kaden? Hello, respond back to me, because if you don't, I will contact Melissa, Georgia's mom. And that's what happened. So, somewhere within all that, when Kaden said he fell asleep, when did Kaden actually fall asleep? Well, we've been told it was 2 in the morning. But then at what time did he wake up? Based on how I interpret it, based on what's been said by Kaden, by Alicia's call log, and also by Breely's sisters, is that Kaden fell asleep at 2 in the morning, and when he woke up, remembering he was supposed to watch her but found out she was gone, found out by being woken up in the first place by a call by Alicia at 2:42, and Alicia saying, we've got Georgia on the way home now. And Kaden's like, I see. She was supposed to be here, she was, but then I fell asleep. And the time of when Kaden fell asleep at 2 in the morning is the time, or just a little bit after, when Breely and Georgia had already been picked up. The reason why that's a problem is because I think within this same conversation, but earlier on, some previous videos back, Kaden said that, I'm trying to figure out which way round it was. I think, yeah, based on what I can remember, this video, what we're doing right now, as with the Facebook Messenger conversation, all the same convos over a course of days in October 2023. You'll see that in my previous videos, part 1, part 2, part 3. And Kaden said in the earlier convos that Georgia had left the party by 11 p.m. And by 11:30, that's when Kaden went to sleep for the first time. So that is still Sunday night. And that's been, whilst Kaden Pressy said that in his own words, the hard evidence and what's been shown since, mentioned by Kaden, even mentioned by Alicia or anyone else in between, goes against his own words, what he's previously said, which is extremely messy. Kaden says one thing, then he discredits, counters himself afterwards with what he says later. and then basing it on what Kaden had said in those earlier convos on the messenger thread, if Kaden says that Georgia had left Sunday night 11 p.m. and then Kaden went to sleep 30 minutes later, then this whole mention of Kaden saying, I fell asleep then woke up remembering what I was supposed to do, you wouldn't have to think that way, because you already know the time of when she left, may have waved her off, and then 30 minutes later then you decide to go to sleep. That doesn't match with what you're saying here. So in the same conversation with the same person, Kaden goes against himself, and discrepancies major. What a mess. So we neglect the 11 timestamp of when Georgia left, because that's not true. We neglect the 11:30 timestamp of when Kaden said he went to sleep for the first time. That's not true. But the response by the other person to what Kaden said about falling asleep and then waking up later, the other person said, oh, well, Kaden, well, we assumed, or from what's been said, we thought that you may have gone to sleep for the first time at 1:30 in the morning. Going to sleep at 1:30 Monday. If that was true, what? Kaden fell asleep at 1:30 in the morning. Georgia Brealey's still at the party house. And then when Kaden woke back up, it was what, 2:42? And that's how he remembered? Or could it be gone to sleep at 1:30 in the morning, woke up at 2 in the morning, and because around 2 or just a little before, Brealey's sister saying, well, that's when we arrived and picked Georgia and Brealey up to take them back home. By 2, when Kaden woke up, looking about, maybe going outside, who knows, and realising, oh, they're not there anymore, they've gone. So then Kaden went back to sleep. Depends how you look at it. No times given by Kaden, no context given either. Absolute mess of dysfunction. I really want to know your thoughts amongst all that. I'll read it out to you one more time, and then you can add on to it in your own words in what you think Kaden meant to say and the time of it. When Georgia had left, and Kaden Pressy's response is, I fell asleep. Then I woke back up remembering I was supposed to watch her and found out she was already gone, so went back to sleep. What time? And as I said, there's like 3 ways you could find out that she's already gone. Either 1, physically, you look around, you look outside, then you realise, well, they're not there, they're probably already gone. 2, someone else at the party had informed Kaden and told him they've already gone. Or 3, the 2:42 call by Alicia to say, we've got your cousin, we're on the way back home now. But there is the conflict, because as I said, with what the other person responded back with was, well, we thought it was like 1:30 when you may have gone to sleep and this and that. And Kaden said, wait, hold up, my mom is twisting it a little bit. Now, from what I saw in the messenger response, there's like numerous screenshots which were to do with Alicia sending to Donna Bond or so, supposedly. Same screenshots which we've already seen and which have been covered on my channel since. The whole highway debacle, the whole 3:15 in the morning claim when Alicia said we arrived at the highway at 3:15 and we waited to then pick up and pull aside Georgia from Brealey. Yeah, because that makes total sense. Alicia stating at 3:15 we just got to the highway. But also Alicia's call log at 2:42 saying we're already on the way back home with Georgia. How's that even possible? How do you arrive at the highway at 3:15 waiting to pick up Georgia, and then earlier on in the day at 2:42 you already had picked her up and you were already on the way back home? and there's hard evidence to back that up, as in the call log. So the whole 3:15 timestamp seems to be complete bollocks, okay? Don't know why Alicia did that, but that's one of the screenshot convos which was mentioned or brought back up. It was, do you know why when you send photos in Facebook Messenger and you select many of them, and then when you send them, it's like on top of one another, like a slideshow, and then you got to click on them and scroll through them. That's how it was sent to Kaden. A collection of screenshots, a collection of statements by Alicia and around the theme of the highway, the timing of Georgia, picking her up, going home, etc. What we've already seen. Kaden Pressy responded back to that, what we've seen, and Kaden said, my mom, Alicia, is twisting it a little bit. As in, what bit was twisted? All of it? Some of it? Wasn't quite clarified. But to twist something, why would you twist anything? To suit your narrative? To make it seem a little bit better? To make it seem a little bit more exaggerative? Sensationalism? To make it sound more shocking, more hard-hitting? To make it seem less suspicious by mentioning a later time? How does that make it less suspicious? If you mention a later time of when things happen, it makes you more suspicious or more of a person of interest because it's closer to the time of when Noah walked away. Hence why when people saw the 3:15 timestamp and onwards, people were assuming that, well, if it's nearby as well, like a mile or so out, and as Alicia originally said, and 3:15, well, it's not far off from when Noah Presgrove walked away. Did Alicia see or hit or come across something? Melissa too? And then Alicia gets a bit defensive at some other point, saying, I can't believe people are saying this or that or thinking this or that. It's because of how you've worded it at another point in time. You can't blame people for interpreting it that way when you've worded it differently at different times. And even Kaden Pressy is kind of shocked at his own mom. Or in other words, mum. So what does that say? Was there anything else that needs to be added on? No, just the 3:15 highway. Probably some other points mentioned from the screenshots of what Alicia had already said, which you yourself may think is a lie and wrong. To summarise it, basically, what Kaden Pressy has said within the case and what we've been able to see and hear, well, when Alicia has spoken about it, she's changed it drastically. Spoken on behalf of Kaden, but putting words into it which Kaden has never said or done or seen. Why would Alicia do that? What the hell's going on there? So Kaden and his mom Alicia are definitely not in sync whatsoever. Whilst Kaden says one thing as a witness to some stuff at the party, Alicia says something completely different, talking about Kaden, and Alicia wasn't even there. So is Alicia changing the story and narrative to make Kaden look more innocent? Well, if that really was the case, it's the complete opposite, counterproductive. Kaden's original points mentioned in terms of himself being innocent were fine. Okay, the 5:15 timestamp and all that's dodgy. But just in terms of Kaden saying, I went to sleep at this time, supposedly, then woke up afterwards, post-death of Noah, or being asleep in between that period of when Noah walked away and died, it'd make you innocent, you're not a witness. But then when Alicia starts adding in, saying, well, Kaden saw this and Kaden saw that, Kaden told me this, Kaden told me that, and yet Kaden's not told us that. And in this private conversation, Kaden says, in regard to the Georgia situation, saying, hold up, my mom is twisting it a little bit. Why is she twisting it? How do you gain from twisting it? It seems like the mom is putting Kaden Pressy in a more difficult position and being exposed to more criticism online or anywhere else. But whilst Kaden Pressy may get harassed, attacked and questioned and critiqued, partially it's because by the hands of his own mom Alicia, but I said other completely different wild stuff which doesn't match with what Kaden says. So it could be interpreted that Alicia is outright lying. There's a difference between twisting something and misinterpreting, misunderstanding, mishearing something so you word it different. Twisting means you heard what was originally said but you're adjusting the words slightly. You might be adjusting the time slightly. You might be making little adjustments, maybe subtle, maybe not, to benefit yourself or to benefit someone else, to protect them, to make them look better, good, innocent, whatever. Twisting is a form of manipulation. Manipulation is unnatural, and something unnatural can be negative. When Kaden Pressy is innocent from the get-go and was asleep and not a witness, why does Alicia need to step in and change anything whatsoever? If it is to help, it's not helping. If it's to protect Kaden, it's done the opposite. Simple as. And the fact that Kaden Pressy, in a joking way, but twisting is twisting, calls out his own mom, it's not a good look. Just like a similar way when Justin Roy's daughter apologised, was it to Jasmine Millan, saying, "I'm sorry about my father's behaviour," etc. It's not a good look, is it? So take that into mind. This is really shocking, on top of the whole mention of Noah's body and photos of it. And there's more to come as well in some later videos, but this whole twisting does not sound good whatsoever. And what else has been twisted too? This is why there's a lot of confusion with Kaden's timeline. Beside the partners in true crime and the police interview, besides the when did Kaden go to sleep, when did Kaden wake up, when did Kaden go back to sleep, between the two interviews, Kaden has done his own self in there. Kaden dug himself into his own hole there by being inconsistent and the discrepancies. But the depth behind other stuff onwards is by the hands of Alicia more so, and it's shown with evidence and proof and screenshots. It's as simple as. And now Kaden, when I say now Kaden, well, back then, early on in 2023, Kaden was calling out in a joking way his own mom for her behaviour. And what Alicia had said on behalf of Kaden, which turned out to either not be true or not accurate enough, twisted, was 2023 onwards. So it seems relevant at the time and kind of consistent. It's not good, is it? Now, beside that, adding on, Kaden Pressy said, oh, it gets a bit worse. Just listen in. Kaden Pressy said, "I was asleep. That's why I didn't answer her," as in her call or her messages. Now, as I said, the photos, screenshots provided of what Alicia had told other people of the general public on behalf of Kaden, which turned out to be twisted, I guess ties in line with a comment or a mention made by Alicia, wording it different. Maybe wording it as if Kaden Pressy ignored my messages. Kaden Pressy was doing other stuff when he should have been looking out for his cousin, my niece. And Kaden's response to that is, "I was asleep. That's why I wasn't able to answer my mom." And yet my mom, maybe, supposedly twisting it as if I was awake and I was being irresponsible and I was doing other things. I was in a different room and I was neglecting my responsibilities and I should have been looking out for Georgia, but I had better things to be doing. And Kaden's saying, well, my mom's twisting that. I was actually asleep, so there's nothing I could do. Okay. So maybe Alicia in that regard got the wrong end of the stick or misinterpreted it. But the fact that enough times passed on in between and there was no verbal face-to-face communication about it clearing it up, yet they lived together or did, what the hell's going on there in terms of cooperation? Kaden Pressy calls out other partygoers, majority, for not cooperating with police when he has. Yet Kaden can't even cooperate with his own mom, vice versa. They're not even in sync. If Kaden's saying that his mom's twisting his own words, they're definitely not in sync, not cooperating. That is a really bad look, right? And it gets worse. Because on top of that, Kaden Pressy was saying my aunt chewed out the girl that took Georgia. Who is Kaden Pressy's aunt? I'm going to be honest with you, I'm guessing. I'm probably wrong. Is Kaden Pressy's aunt Melissa? The only reason why I would say that is because Melissa, the mom to Georgia, I wouldn't say I'm that clever when it comes to family trees. I get mixed up, right? But if it is Melissa chewing out the girl, and not that we've got to do a demonstration right now, when it says chewing out, I've heard that reference once before. I think it's an American thing, so people may already know, but if you're from a different country, you might get the wrong end of the stick. In the Dylan Brown's case, Dylan Brown's mom, Candice Cooley, said, well, the reason why Dylan probably lied to me about seeing that guy and giving him a ride back to Montello, Nevada, because he was a stranger, is because Dylan, my son, knew that if he told me, I would chew his ass out. Now, when it comes to chewing someone's arse out, it's completely different to eating someone's arse out. Not that I'm going to do a demonstration right now. Might be the odd person that would want that, but no. Eating someone's rear end out involves being behind someone and grabbing onto a person's cheeks, opening them and pushing your nose, pushing your mouth, your tongue and whatever else in between, oral exercises, into a person's rim and possibly penetration as well. That's what eating someone's backside out, okay? Is it a safe thing to do? Well, if it's washed, it should be. But beside that, chewing someone's ass, is that chomping? Is that nibbling around the rim? Nibbling on the cheek? No. I believe it's more so to do with giving someone a piece of your own mind. So when Candice Cooley said, I think that my son lied to me because he knew that if he told me the truth of taking a stranger, giving a stranger a ride back to wherever, it's a dangerous thing to do, and his mom wouldn't approve of that. So if Dylan told his mom what he did, then his mom would be angry, shout, have a go, tell him off. Chewing someone's ass is basically telling someone off. I guess it's a slang. Completely different to eating someone's arse, okay? So chewed out is probably along the lines of similar chewing someone's backside, okay? Just having a go at someone. And for Kaden to say, my aunt chewed out, my aunt had a go, shouted at the girl that took Georgia to the party, it makes sense. If it's Melissa, if I'm correct, it makes even more sense. Motherly instinct, the mother, Melissa, should be annoyed, should be angry to some extent. You know, your daughter ended up drunk, ended up at a party where they shouldn't have been, and Breely plays a role in that because the girl that took Georgia to the party, if it's based on taking to the party, took Georgia means taken to somewhere, and likely probably the party. If it's not that, it's taken back home but intercepted, drunk driving, but that shouldn't be the case because it was Breely's sister doing the driving, not Georgia. So the mention of the girl that took Georgia to the party, that would be Breely. That's how it's been mentioned since. Breely was driving, Georgia was the passenger. And Georgia supposedly either lied or snuck out the house unknown to Melissa. But Alicia ended up knowing about it because of Kaden Pressy contacting her before Melissa. And Alicia did not tell Melissa until much later on when it was already too late and it was already bad and escalated. So you could say Alicia is no better. Trusted Kaden to safeguard, didn't work out. Then later decided to contact Melissa. If Melissa is Kaden's aunt, and I'm not too sure if that's the case, but you could understand based on that why one would be chewing out the girl, as in Breely, that took Georgia to a party which had much older people there, influence and presence of alcohol, Georgia not of the right age, and a minor as well, supposedly, taken to a possibly dangerous environment or a not so appropriate environment for that age range. And depending what age Breely was, whether they should know better or not, depending on age, you can understand why a mother would be protective of a daughter and say, how dare you take my daughter to a party like that and put them in harm's way. You know, like that heat of the moment, arguing, chewing out someone. Yeah, I get that. Right, so why does it really matter? Well, that's what Kaden Pressy mentioned in the convo. It's what was followed up by the person on the other end of the conversation that was told differently by Alicia. Twisting words again, maybe. Let's read it out. So the person on the other end, after hearing what Kaden said about the aunt chewing out Breely that took Georgia to the party, responded back with, well, Kaden, your mom, Alicia, said you, Kaden, chewed out a 22-year-old girl that brought Georgia to the party already drunk. What? Kaden Pressy, to our knowledge, has never mentioned anything about arguing or shouting at anyone at the party, and yet Alicia is claiming that's what Kaden did. And it's crazy. What did Kaden say in response? No, I didn't. So Kaden says, I didn't argue, I didn't have a go at anyone at the party. I didn't chew out anyone, and it wasn't even to do with Georgia, my cousin, being taken to the party in the first place. If Kaden says, no, I didn't do anything like that, then why is Alicia stating that Kaden did? Alicia appears to be twisting words based on that. Alicia is making Kaden Pressy look more bad. Why would you do that? What? That's weird. Now, I'll be honest with you, I've not seen the screenshot of Alicia stating that's what Kaden did. If anyone has the screenshot, reach out. Okay? Just want to make that very clear. But to say your mom, Alicia, is stating that you, Kaden, your mom is calling out Kaden, own son, for arguing with a 22-year-old girl. Well, who's that? Seems pretty obvious. Avery Jo Combs, also known as Avery Jo Howard, the birthday girl who turned 22 at the time, one of the hosts, the one that lived there. You know, Avery Combs. Why would Kaden supposedly be arguing with Avery Combs? Why? Well, how it's stated here, because Alicia claimed that the reason behind it, the motive, is because Avery was the one that brought Georgia to the party. And Georgia was already drunk when showing up. Well, where did that alcohol come from then? At what point? So Georgia was already drunk before showing up at the party. Well, that's what people from the dark side have said. And it might have been Brooke Bounce Carter that spoke on behalf of it. Correct me if I'm wrong. But someone from the dark side said, well, reality is, Breely and Georgia showed up at the party. Breely driving, Georgia passenger. They both showed up drunk. So when they arrived at the party, Avery didn't have much choice but to welcome them in. She could not send them back on their way because that would be dangerous for them. They made it down safely despite drunk driving. But if they were to leave now, they might not be as lucky. So yeah, in a difficult rock and a hard place, if that's true. But Alicia is stating that it wasn't Breely that drove Georgia to the party. It was Avery Combs, Avery Howard. What? I've never heard that before. Avery. When I say Avery Combs or Avery Howard, it's the same person, right? I say Avery Combs, it's easier. Alicia stating Avery Combs is the girl that brought Georgia to the party. And all the other times it's been worded as it was Breely, the friend to Georgia. Where's Alicia getting this information from? Right? And, you know, let's say it was Breely, because it is, from what we've heard. Breely is the one driving Georgia to the party. There'd be no other reason for Kaden to have an argument. Kaden's never acknowledged having an argument with anyone. It's not a good look, to be honest. So, with that being in mind, we just move on to some other additional notes just towards the back area. There we go. So in what was said just then, as for the person responding back to Kaden saying, well, Alicia said this about you and Alicia said that about you. Well, they said that, well, that's what Alicia had sent to Donna Bond. So, if Alicia has stated that Kaden chewed out Avery Combs because Avery's responsible for driving Georgia to the party in the first place, if that's what was sent to Donna Bond, then Donna Bond should have the screenshot. So Donna Bond, if you are a witness, if you are present, let me know your thoughts there. What the hell's going on? Do we have screenshot evidence proof of that being true? Is there an actual screenshot of Alicia falsely stating it, as in what Kaden did, even though Kaden said he never did? If you got a screenshot, let me know. Very important, because based on this pattern, if it turns out with evidence to be backed up, then it shows that Alicia is doing more harm to Kaden than anything. Beside that, in response or in addition, Kaden Pressy said, I said the girl that brought Georgia was already drunk. Really? So Kaden didn't mention a name, but what? Alicia just worded one thing with another and just assumed that, oh, well, it must be Avery then. Still, why? I mean, is Avery a stranger to Georgia? Because if so, then why would Avery be giving a stranger a ride to the house, especially when already underage? You'd be thinking, right, I wouldn't be going out my way to pick someone up and drive them down to the party when I don't know them and when they're underage as well. I'm just digging myself into trouble. But Breely, because Breely is friends to Georgia, it makes more sense to be taking one person from point A to point B. But Kaden's response, I said the girl that brought Georgia was already drunk. No name mentioned, but likely Breely. So Breely was drunk driving with Georgia as the passenger, drunk or not. Just based on that, yes, you can call out social hosting laws. Actually, to be honest, it's people from the light side. People over time from the light side that have bombarded and blasted the party host and the distribution of alcohol to underage people, including minors like Breely and Georgia, right? Kaden Pressy, in his own words, has stated that the girl that was driving Georgia, which appears to be Breely, was drunk driving. Was Breely of an adult age to be drinking? Legal age? No. Was Georgia drunk as a passenger? Maybe, maybe not. But at least one of the two people is drunk in the car, and they just so happen to be the one driving. That's a problem, isn't it? But you know what is a bigger issue? Is that, like I said, people from the light side are blasting and bombarding the party host, and specifically the birthday girl Avery Combs, for distributing alcohol and giving it out to underage people and minors. And yet a minor, or at least a person of under the legal age of drinking, was already drunk before they actually arrived at the party. And Kaden Pressy acknowledges it from what's been said. So even if that party did not have alcohol, underage people showed up drunk, and there's nothing you could have done to stop it. When these individuals get drunk away from the party, away from the property, before they even set out or whilst setting out, they get drunk. You can't blame the party host for that, can you? So it's not all the responsibility and fault on the party, the host, and that spot. Because if other people have shown up drunk, even before arriving at the house, what can you do to control that? Can you turn people away? No, because you'd be sending away drunk drivers. That's irresponsible. The only counterpoint you can say is, if you're a responsible person and people show up to your party, uninvited or whatever, but more importantly, they show up drunk and you find out that they're not of the correct age, underage, you can't send them away, but really you can't keep them at the house either because alcohol's present. So all you could do is make a call to their parents, their guardians, their friends to get picked up. That's the only responsible thing you can do, and it wasn't done. So you can still say certain party hosts are to blame because they did not act on that. But what if people show up and they appear looking older than what they actually are, or they lie about their age? Are you going to bring an ID badge with you? Not to a bloody casual gathering or house party. It's not a nightclub. So yeah, people can show up underage. People can already show up drunk. You can't be to blame for that. Avery can't be to blame for that, at least, right? And whilst they are welcomed in because they can't be sent on their way because that would be dangerous, that if and only if they appear to look or lie about their age, what can Avery do about that as well? If someone tells you that they're 18, well, no, more importantly, they tell you that, well, they're of the age of 21 or older, regardless of height, because that doesn't mean shit, but in terms of appearance and how they look and how they present themselves, if they say that they're 21 and it appears convincing enough, what else can you do about that? If someone shows up and they look really young and it's very obvious, and they say, well, actually, I'm 44 years old, but really, they're 15, I think it's going to be a bit obvious there. I don't know if you get any exceptions in between. Maybe someone who's 15 shows up and they look like they're 33 years old because they've got a full beard, head of hair and everything. You may be excused there. But you get what I'm saying. Specifically with certain underage people showing up drunk, you welcome them in because you can't send them away because that would be dangerous. It's a miracle that they managed to make it down to the party house, drunk driving. Whether George is drunk or not, at least one of the underage people is drunk and they show up to a party already drunk. What can that party host do? Welcome them in. Did they ask for age and so on? I don't know. That might be a problem. And what did Georgia and Breeley look like at the time? Did they physically, visually look and mentally appear as 21-year-olds and older? Or did they actually appear and act as their age? That's the most important factor there. Because if they were able to deceive or convince Avery and some others that they're of the correct age and it's all okay, what can the host do? Can't send them on their way because drunk driving. May not need to call or ring their parents or guardians because they've been convinced that they're of an older age, even if it's a lie. It's just like, more so with males, when certain occasions, certain outcomes, when a male could be accused of paedophile, along that lines of being in a connection or participating in a certain act with a person of the opposite gender, more so, that turns out to be of underage and under the age of consent or under the age of to do certain acts. But if a person of the opposite gender showed up somewhere, acting older, dressing older, appearing older than what they actually are, and talking and lying through their face, what can the other party do about that? If it's convincing enough, and there's a strong case to put across that yes, they are of the correct age, and they make it very clear, they might even use a fake ID badge as well, depending on the environment you're in. And then what? The two people get close and both participate in a certain act, and then that other person afterwards says, that person's a creep, that person's a paedophile, I'm only 14, I'm only 15. Well, were they told that before the actual act took place? No, they were lied to. Oh, they were 18, oh, they were 20, oh, they were 30. Very manipulative, very controlled, and not good whatsoever, right? So based off the way certain people of a certain gender at time can appear and lie and deceive to screw over the careers and lives of others out there, at times, because it's not always, could be the same style, possibly, for underage people showing up at this particular party, claiming to be of this age when they're not. What else can you do about it? Okay, other people that show up, people that you're familiar with, as in friends, you know what age they are, you know they're underage, well then you should know better not to serve them alcohol. There is still a responsibility to the host, okay? But for some, the much younger age spectrum, the possible minors, and if you don't know them, providing you don't know them, how are you going to know? And if they lie to you, how are you going to know the actual truth? You need to hire a bodyguard, you need to hire anyone that comes in. We need IDs, we need passports. Come on. So what I'm saying is, when referring back to people that like to blast and put on blast the host at the party for allowing and providing underage people, specifically maybe minors as well, the alcohol, and that's a bad thing. And yet Kaden Pressy is basically saying that Kaden said, because I know, the girl that brought Georgia's friend Breely, was already drunk. As in, drunk when taking to the party. Well, based on what was mentioned before, that when it was twisted differently, and maybe it was twisted to purposely orchestrate and make Avery look more the worse person. Did Alicia twist Kaden's words public to push the social hosting charges? Ooh, because just hold with me. It stated that your mom, Kaden, Alicia, said that you chewed out Avery Combs, the girl that brought Georgia to the party, already drunk. Already drunk as in how? And Kaden says, no, I said the girl that brought Georgia was already drunk. The girl, but what girl though? The girl as in Avery, the girl as in Breely. Well, I do believe Kaden has mentioned it himself that it was Breely that drove Georgia to the party. So when Kaden said, I said the girl that brought Georgia was already drunk, as in the girl Breely, and not Avery, as what Alicia says or said. Why would Alicia say it was Avery that drove Georgia to the party, and Kaden has said it was Breely? Breely is a friend to Georgia and close. Is Avery a friend to Georgia? Maybe not. So how would Avery even know about Georgia? How would Avery, and why would Avery even bother to bring Georgia to a party when, why? So whether there's miscommunication, but there's a big difference between Breely and then Avery. Age difference wise, appearance wise, hair color wise, etc. Connection based wise. It's not It's not like a mistake you should make, right? But it seems as if, did Alicia pin the blame on Avery for being drunk? Or knowing Georgia was drunk but driving them to a party where there was more alcohol as a form of sensationalism to make it look even more worse, to say, depending on how you interpret it, that if Avery was drunk, oh, Avery is drunk driving, that's an offence, that's not good. But then you're endangering the life of the passenger who's a minor, that's even worse. And you're taking them to a party where there's alcohol and older people, that's even more worse. How dare you, Avery, do that? Take a minor or an underage person to a party where there's alcohol and you're drunk as well in the moment. You're endangering people's lives and you're breaking many laws. That's really evil and demonic. That's how you could interpret it. The alternative way of how you could interpret it, worded in other ways, along the lines of maybe Alicia was wording it as Avery wasn't drunk when driving, but Georgia was drunk, and maybe Georgia was drunk before getting to the party and before provided alcohol by Avery, but because Avery was driving and Avery knew that Georgia was drunk and yet taking her to a party when maybe knowing of they were of a younger age, you're not doing them favours, you're taking them to an even worse place. You find out that someone's already drunk and you're purposely driving them to a party where there's more alcohol and they're not of the right age. That's just as bad as what the other option was. Maybe Alicia purposely changed the names about to make the social hosting and the host appear demonic and really bad. What Kaden had been saying publicly and through certain interviews is that, well, it was just Breely, George's friend, who know one another, who hang out and have fun with one another. Doesn't sound as bad, does it? It is bad, and it is reckless, and it's not good if one or the other is drunk, especially the one driving, and that's Breely, because still both of them are under the age of legal drinking. So they've already committed one rule-breaking thing, haven't they? So based on that, it seems like, has Alicia tried assassinating Avery's character even further in an unnatural, twisted way? Or has there been a big misunderstanding? And at the end of the day, as I said, since some people from the light side like to blast the host and people that were there for providing alcohol to underage people, these underage people showed up drunk. These underage people have already taken matters into their own hands. Their actions. That's not good either. Let's not forget that. They're not 100% innocent either. It was Jack Newton, and we've covered it recently because it was mentioned, I believe, by Caleb Newton in the People articles a week or two ago in response to the wrongful death lawsuit. And Caleb said, Jack told me that everybody brought alcohol with them to the party. Well, people like to say that's not true. That's a load of bollocks. And yet Kaden Pressy, in his own words in the past, said the girl that brought Georgia to the party was already drunk. Could be interpreted as already drunk, as in when driving, already drunk before even showing up at the party. So if at least one of the girls is showing up drunk already because they've already had alcohol beforehand, or they may have brought additional alcohol with them, with Kaden Pressy saying it of all people, does that tie in line with what Jack Newton had said recently about there was other people bringing alcohol with them, hence why some showed up drunk already, like how Kaden Pressy worded. What's the light side going to do now? Are they going to interpret it? Are they going to jump from one thing to another? Because all the yes men, yes women that bow down to Kaden Pressy, once again we've got another situation where people have been going against Kaden Pressy whilst also claiming to support Kaden Pressy, but the stuff what Kaden Pressy has said, which goes against what the other people that support Kaden Pressy in the first place, which are saying publicly, don't know about the stuff what Kaden Pressy is saying, because the stuff what Kaden Pressy is saying has been said privately in the background, and now it's being passed on publicly. So are you in line with what Kaden says now? Because there are things along the way in which what Jasmine Millan says, people will nod their heads and say, nope, Don't believe in it. It's a load of rubbish. It's not normal. It's not normal for Noah to wander off. Jasmine Milan says it's normal for Noah to wander off. We're not going to believe her. She's suspicious. She's dodgy. She's linked with Noah's death. That's what people have said over time. And guess what? Kaden Pressy, in his own words, said the same exact thing as Jasmine Milan and gave more depth as well as to why it's normal. Oh, people will believe what Kaden Pressy says about that, but not what Jasmine says about the same exact thing. So if you believe in what Kaden Pressy says, you should believe in what Jasmine Milan says. Why? Because they're talking about the same bloody thing. And that could apply to other areas in the case. What Kaden says ends up being similar or the same thing as to what another partygoer says. The only difference is that people listened to what the other partygoer said first and didn't believe them. But then when Kaden Pressy says the same thing, do people then believe it? Do then people then believe the original person but they doubted? I wonder. Ooh, we're getting very deep today. But as said, all what I'm saying is from what Kaden has said in his words. Facebook Messenger back in 2023 of October, right? Moving on. Another thing mentioned by the person on the other end of the convo said that, well, Alicia said to Donna Bond, you, Kaden, never left George's side at the party. And what we heard a bit earlier, Kaden said, well, he went to sleep, he then woke back up and forgot, well, he remembered what he was supposed to do. Be by George's side, but he went to sleep. He neglected his roles. He neglected his responsibilities and duties. That's what Kaden says in his own words. And yet Alicia is twisting it, supposedly, and says that, well, you, Kaden, was with Georgia by her side at the party throughout. Well, if that's the case, then why did Alicia call out Kaden via the text conversation and says, where are you, Kaden? I can see on the Find My iPhone tracking app, I can see that your icon does not match up with George's. Why are you separate? Why are you not following her as I instructed you to do so? What are you doing? Where are you at? Why are you abandoning her? Not literally with those words used, but you get what I'm saying. If you don't respond back now or you don't reply soon, I'm going to contact Melissa, George's mom. Well, if Alicia is aware that Kaden neglected his duties and was not by George's side, then why did Alicia supposedly say to Donna Bond that Kaden never left George's side at the party, when Alicia has seen it herself and called Kaden out for it? Oh no. So once again, Donna Bond, get your house, get your back garden, get your front door, get the windows, get everything in your house and find those screenshots. Because this is everything what Alicia has told Donna Bond about what Kaden actually did, which isn't what Kaden had said. Kaden Pressy's response in regard to Alicia's twisted words, supposedly, Kaden said, well, I watched Georgia for a while, but once there was like 2 girls watching over her, I went to pee and then fell asleep on the couch. I mean, yeah, if you're tired, if you're passed out, you might go to the toilet, you might make a drink, you might make a tea, you might do whatever, and then you get back to where you are and then, oh, passed out, oh, bloody hell, can't wake them up now. Do they need their beauty sleep? Maybe. But at the end of the day, a bit of context is given by Kaden, but why does it differ to Alicia? What Alicia says should be what Kaden says when they're on the same side, and it's Kaden that is the one that was at the house, not Alicia, so Alicia should be speaking directly what Kaden says, not alternatively. The only way you could justify Alicia speaking alternatively to Kaden is if Alicia was actually there and saw other things which Kaden isn't being truthful about, but Alicia wasn't there. So why twist it? It's not looking good, is it? Anyway, watching over Georgia for a while, but Kaden's reasoning behind not being by Georgia's side onwards is because 2 other girls were watching over Georgia. At what time and when though? Was it at 12:48 when Georgia ended up being drunk and throwing up outside and that vulnerability factor? and the two girls were looking out for her? Or was it later past that point at 1 in the morning onwards? Take in mind that at 1:05 in the morning, Kaden was outside front porchway recording Brylan slapping Noah. But I think that's the last piece of footage that Kaden recorded. So at 1:05 in the morning, where was Georgia and Breely? What were they doing? Were they inside of the house, round the back? May have been away from Kaden at that point. If at that point onwards you could interpret it and say maybe that's when the two girls were watching over Georgia. But who are these two girls? Avery, Carter, Jasmine, Stephanie. Any other girls? Logan Jernigan. I think that's most of them that I've mentioned, if not all. Which of the two girls were watching over Georgia? And at that time, Kaden thought, right, well, I'll just go for a pee now. Just a simple pee, and then instantly plonk onto the couch. At the time of when Kaden walked away to go for a pee, and when the two girls were watching over Georgia, where was Georgia then? Inside of the house somewhere? And why is it all about Georgia being watched and looked after? What about Breely then? Is it because Breely is a year or two older than Georgia? Georgia's a minor at the time, but Breely is not. Because the whole age range is a bit warped by what some say compared to what other people say. It's a messy situation, but they're the notes for today, right? What Kaden had said, what the other person on the receiving end of the convo had stated, with witness to passed on from Donna Bond, witnessing what Alicia has said. What a mess. This is a disaster. Okay, granted, this should have been done sooner, but I'll tell you something. Didn't have access to this in the past, right? And it's been breaking news ever since with other stuff. So I thought, with the breaking news that's passed by now, because it's gone silent again, we've hit like a wall until the next update comes. Let's hammer it in now with this other stuff. Because what's really the truth? Whilst Kaden Pressy may be innocent, Alicia is not helping. And it's not been cleared up since. And because of that, that's why the awareness is needed to try and set the record straight and along the way, highlight the double standards as well amongst those within the community, right? So be sure to hit the like button, share the video so as many people can see this as possible, and then we'll go from there. My name's Wallite Raff. Thanks for watching. Goodbye. Good night for now.